So we've just recut our fret slots here, and we've remarked out the shape of the neck, and we've redrawn in where the rest of our dot inlays are going to be. So before we shape the board and before we do any radiusing, we're going to do the rest of our dot inlays. So I've just got some 6mm brass rod here, so I just drilled some test holes here to find a good fit, and it is a good fit. So we've got some 2-part epoxy here as well. So we're going to head over to the drill press and we'll drill out all our holes, and then we'll cut down this bar and we'll epoxy it in place. So we've just cut out our brass rod there to make our dot inlays, and we've got the holes drilled. So we're going to mix up some 2-part epoxy now, just put a little bit in, and then we'll press in our brass rod, and then we'll leave that to cure for a little while. So we'll just press on ahead now. So the epoxy is cured on our fretboard markers, and we've just used a leveling beam and some files and stuff to get it down flush. So they're flush with the surface, but still very rough at the moment, and the whole board is quite rough. So what we're going to do next is we're going to just clean things up a little bit, and we're going to get ready to attach the fingerboard to the neck and get ready to do all our various bindings and things like that. And then once all that's done, then we're going to come and radius the board, and then after that's done we can get our frets in. So next thing, as I said, we're just going to give the board a bit of a clean up on that and prep it to be glued in place on the neck. So apologies for the noise of the rain in the background, but it's springtime in Ireland, so rain. And we've got our fingerboard in place now, and we've got it along our centre line and just clamped in place, ready to go. We're going to drill a couple of small holes just to put in some reference pins so we can get everything lined up. And we've got our black veneer here as well, which is going to go underneath the fingerboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill our holes, put our reference pins in, and then just do a dry fit to make sure everything lines up properly, and then we'll get ready for yet another glow up. And most modern guitars have truss rods, let's not forget that. So I've just done a dry fit of our black veneer and our fingerboard, and everything still matches up well and lines up perfectly. So we can take this all apart and get ready for our glow up now. So getting ready for our glow up now. So we've got our neck, we've got our black veneer, and we've got our fingerboard. So just using some regular Type Bond here. So we're just going to get this on, get it brushed on, get everything put together, and we've got a ton of clamps just off screen here, and we'll get all those on. So we'll just press on ahead with this now and see how we go. And we've got our blue masking tape here just to keep the truss rod protected. So we've just put a couple of clamping coils in place here, just 2 bits of wood that we have lined with some sellotape that the glue won't stick to, and it should help spread out the pressure a bit as well. So with those in place, just time to start getting a whole load of clamps on. So that's the whole thing clamped up now. So as we said, we'll get a nice damp cloth here and get rid of all this squeeze out, and we'll leave this for a couple of days and come back to it. Okay, so it's the next day, and we're going to take all our clamps off now and see how our glue up went. Now just take our clamping coils off. As we said, these are just a piece of wood that we've covered in sellotape, just so the glue won't stick to it. And that's come away okay. So, just taking a quick look. It looks like we've got a pretty good joint all the way around. Doesn't look like there's any gaps. So what we'll do now is we'll start to trim all this up. We'll get it over to the bandsaw, trim up as close to the lines as we dare, and set up our router table and do a final clean up on the whole thing and get it cut down to the exact shape. So that's our neck just off the bandsaw. We just did a quick buzz along the edge there to take off all the heavy stuff. So I'm going to set up our router table now and we'll trim it up to a final shape. So we've got our router table set up now and we've got our spiral bit in. So we'll just be running things along there, referencing off the neck and trimming everything up nice and square. So we'll just press on ahead with that now. So that's our neck all trimmed up now, looking quite nice. Small little bit of cleanup still to do on the sides, but it's shown off our black accent piece of veneer there quite nicely. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to cut our binding channel along the edge of the fretboard here, and we'll be cutting it at such a way that we still show this bottom accent piece, and we'll be able to put in another black accent piece just to run along the edge, and our purple heart binding, which should look quite attractive if it works. So we'll press on ahead now. We'll change our bit over to our binding bit and press on ahead now. So we've got our router table set up now, and we've got our binding cutting bit installed, and so we're just going to buzz this along here, and we'll just cut a very small binder channel there, just to take you in and show you if this will show up. So that should just cut a nice channel there, and it should leave a very small gap that will just show that off our black accent piece, leave a small amount of maple shown, and then we'll have our purple heart binding in place, as well as our other black accent piece that you'll see from the top. So as we said, we'll press on ahead, we'll cut this out and get ready to start doing our binding. Okay, so we've got our binding channel cut along here now, and so what we're going to do is we're going to be putting in a piece of black veneer along here, followed by our piece of purple heart binding. Just trying to hold these in place so you can see. So from the top you'll be able to see a thin little black line of veneer and then the purple heart binding, and from the side you'll be able to see the neck, a black accent piece, a sliver of the maple fretboard, then the purple heart as well. So all done, it should look quite attractive. So we'll press on ahead now and do what's going to be a very awkward glue up to get all this stuff in place. We might end up using some drops of super glue and stuff like that to hold everything in, and we're leaving everything extended towards the end here. We've got some end pieces we're going to use as well, and we'll work out how we're going to do that, and we'll probably just be like a mitered corner or something like that, or we might just have them button up against each other, we'll see, because of the curve at the end here. And we may be a little bit difficult to try and curve this purple heart without splintering. We might soak it and warm it up a little bit to see what we can do, but we'll press on ahead anyway, and we'll try and get our black strips on and then the purple heart binding, and so we'll go through that now. So we're just getting our black veneer and our purple heart here ready. So what we're doing is we're just taking some super glue, running that along the purple heart, spraying some activator on the black veneer, and just pressing the whole lot down together, and then we're going to trim around the black veneer just like we've done with this one, just ready to be trimmed. So we'll press on ahead now and do that. So just starting here by putting some super glue on our purple heart. And then we're just going to spray some activator on our veneer here. And then we'll just press the whole thing together. Hold on. So just give that a minute or so to make sure that it's all completely dry. And we've done our other pieces here, and we'll trim them all down and then get ready to glue them into place. So we're just getting ready to attach our side pieces of binding now, and we've got some Type Bond in a syringe here just to try and get it in nice and cleanly along the edge here. Normally we're using plastic binding and we could just, you know, tape it all up and then wick some acetone in, but because it's natural wood binding we need to use wood glue or super glue, but we're not having the best of luck with super glue today, so we're going with wood glue. So we're just going to get a nice bead in along there, get the pieces held in, and we'll get them all taped in place. We might throw on some clamps then or something like that if it looks a bit loose anywhere. So we'll just press on ahead now and get this stuff glued in. So I'm just working the opposite side of the camera here first, so apologies if you can't see, but you'll see the other side when we get going. And this side is also grabbing nicely as well. So with all that in place, we'll start getting some tape on some clamps maybe as well. If we got any little bits that seem to be moving, but that's holding quite nicely. We've got some squeeze out, not too much, which is good. But as you said, we still have the radius, the top of the board, and that'll take care of any squeeze out, and we can recut our fret slots as well. But very happy at the moment the way that's gone. So we'll just get some tape on here. So that's our binding all taped in place now. So it's late Saturday afternoon, so we'll leave this now until Monday morning when we come back, and we'll see how we get on. Joint looks good, everything seems to be holding well in place, and so we'll take the tape off on Monday and we'll start to pare everything down and see how we look. So it's a couple of days later, and we're going to take the tape off now. The bond looks quite good all the way around. So we'll get the tape off, we'll see how we're fixed, if we've any gaps or anything we might need to fill, and then we'll start to take down the edges and the sides to get things nice and smooth. So that's the tape off, and the joint is looking quite good. So we'll start to pare down the sides and start to trim everything up. So after some hand planing, quick buzz on the router table and a small bit of hand sanding as well, and we've got all the binding taken down flush on the sides and top, and still a small little bit of cleaning up to do, just to bring you in to show you the effect we've gone for. So we've got the maple of our neck, we've got our black veneer, we've got some more of the maple exposed, and then our purple heart here, and as we come around to the top you can see we've got the purple heart binding, and then we've got the black veneer leading into our fingerboard then. So still a small few little bits to clean up on that, but we're going to be radiusing the board next, so that'll take more material off the side and clean things up a little bit more as well. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to set up our little jig and we'll radius the board. So this is our setup for sanding in the radius onto the fretboard. So we've just got a long piece of maple here that's got a straight edge, and we've just masking tape and super glued our neck down in place, and we've got a center line on the fingerboard, we've got a center line on our radius block, and it all lines up. So we'll just be manually doing this backwards and forwards, and we're using our straight edge on the maple to keep us on the line. So we'll just get stuck into this, a bit of elbow grease on that, and we should be there. So starting off with some 80 grit to begin with, and then we'll move up through the grits once we've got the radius that we want. So we're moving on to shaping our neck now, and the method that I use is a method of creating facets and then rounding them over, etc. and that, and I've got all my marks out on the neck that I use for reference and that, and the method that I use is pretty much exactly the same as Fletcher's handcrafted guitars. I'll put a link up above there to his video on how he does it. I've used that on several guitars. It's a very great system for getting you right into the ballpark of where the neck needs to be, and then you can do your final shaping yourself if there's a particular profile you like, etc. So as I said, I follow his method, and I won't go into detail here about how you take your measurements and marking and stuff. He does a very great video explaining how it's done, but basically we end up with several marks along the side of the neck and on the back of the neck, showing what material we can remove to create the facets before rounding it over, and your obviously the transition up there and transition down here as well. So as I said, it's a very simple method, and I'm just going to press on ahead now and start removing some wood. As I said, Fletcher's Handcrafted Guitars gives a great explanation on exactly how to do this. So we're just about to start carving the neck, and as you said, we're going to be using facets, so we'll be taking off this large chunk here based on our pencil line we've got here and here, So today's plan is to take this vaguely clean floor and make it even filthier with lots of shavings. So we'll just crack on now. So as we said, we've worked on all our facets here on that to get the round over, and the neck is quite round now at the moment after doing all those facets. Still a lot of parts to clean up. We still have to do our transition here at the headstock and the transition down here at the heel as well, but at the moment it is quite round. Still needs a lot of smoothing and a little bit more shaping just along the last transition here that leads to the fingerboard. But as we said, getting there nice and round, and we'll just continue on smoothing out, as we said, our transitions and that, and we should almost be done then. So continuing with our neck, it's time to fix some fatal errors we have with the neck. First one being is that we've gone way too thin here. You can see there's very little material here. That's begging to break. So what we're going to do is we're going to put on some black veneer first of all to cover that up, and then we're going to take this piece that we actually cut off the top of the headstock to begin with, and we're going to glue that back on to add some extra strength. And when we glue that back on, then we'll just shave down a very small amount off the top to get us to the exact thickness we want, and that should get us more into the ballpark of what we want in terms of thickness. So that's error number one in our litany of errors we've made here. So next thing is, if we take our fret scale ruler here, and we'll just hold it on where it should be on our first, second fret here. Let's see if the camera can make that out. You might just see where our nut position is supposed to be. We're actually out by about 2 or 3 millimeters here, which isn't good and will mean the instrument won't function. So what we're going to do is, after we've put let's just take you back out here. After we put our new piece on top here, what we're going to do is we're going to take another piece of Purple Heart, and we're just going to glue that in place there. So what that will do is that will allow us the extra material we'll need to cut the proper nut slot, so our nut can sit on top in the exact position it's supposed to. And it will also mean that with our binding along here, we'll also have a nice purple line here as well, so it'll look like the binding is complete, and it'll look like it was intentional and not an absolute error that we made. So as I said, press on another glue up, we'll get our black veneer on, our new cover piece, and we'll also glue in our piece of Purple Heart here. And while all that's drying up, we'll finally get to doing some work on the body as well. So another glue up, and then we'll press on ahead. So we've taken off all our clamps and we've just cleaned up the surface on the sides and that. And what we need to do next is we're going to take this piece of veneer, and we've just notched it out there so we still have access to our truss rod. And we'll be gluing that in place, and then taking this piece of binding, and same thing again, we'll be gluing that in place as well. So as we said, that will make up the binding so it completely covers the fretboard, and it will allow us that extra few millimeters that we need for the placement of the nut to go in correctly. So we're just going to put some glue on here, leave these to sit overnight or so, and we'll come back and clean that up then. And meanwhile we'll move on to some parts of the body. So as we said, that's our thin sliver of veneer and our piece of binding glued in tape. We've cut them down exactly where we want the nut slot to begin, and we've cleaned up the area as well. So what we're going to do next is we still have to fret the instrument, and because we're waiting on some frets to arrive, what we're going to do next is we're going to use our neck that we now have ready, and we're going to cut out our neck pocket.